The Binding of Isaac meets Hades meets Noita. It's a apt comparison, even though I hate describing things like that. It's true that the roguelike genre, lots of games, and they all kind of have certain elements that they share, and this is a decent way of describing Magicraft, which is really good. So hi, I'm Mugthief, a person who plays too many games and thinks too much about them, and hopefully your favorite floppy-haired content creator. Magicraft is available on Steam in early access for 10 USD or your local currency. It is currently pretty good on content. Not amazing though. I would say maybe you can get 10 to 20 hours of playtime out of this unless you really just like the game and want to keep running it. But I really didn't encounter that much more in the meta progression to kind of sink my teeth into after the 15-hour mark. But the game is fun, so you could definitely keep playing it. Why would you be interested in this game? Well, it's very action focused. There's not a lot of downtime. There's not a lot of exploration. There's not a lot of running around. It's mostly combat and designing what you want to use in combat. That's where the Noita comparison comes in with how wands and the logic system works. It's kind of like a little puzzle, because in this game you are a mage and your attack is using your wand, but you can customize your wand. You put spells into the wand slots, and there are a lot of modifiers and combinations and different stuff that you can do in order to alter the final result of what your main attack is going to be. This is later expanded and goes absolutely crazy with having multiple different wands equipped, and you can use different enchantments to maybe have that wand attack by itself, or have a wand that summons creatures that use the spells attached to that wand. So that maybe you walk into a room, you take out one wand, summon a bunch of creatures that are going to use the spell that you program them to use, and then you swap to your main attack wand. There's also enchantments that just directly make a wand autonomous, so that just goes around and attacks by itself, so that you can use all of your different wands at the same time. It is a top-down game, and there are potions that work a lot like you might expect cards to work in Isaac. Double your keys, increase your HP or maybe lower it, increase your size or decrease your size, those sorts of things. There are keys to open chests and secret doors, but there's no exploration. It's a binary thing. You reach the end of a stage, there's a door that requires a key, you open it, there's maybe a little puzzle, you get an extra reward. But those are where the comparisons to Isaac end. The top-downness, but it's not keyboard-based. You aim with your mouse, and the potions and the fact that you're kind of building your own synergies in the game. And if that's something that you really enjoyed doing in Isaac, you know, wondering, well, what happens if I get brimstone with Monstro's lung? That's what this game is about. It's about discovering those synergies and how they work together, and kind of going through it and making the most of the spells that you have and re-rolling them to get the combos that you want, or to just have some fun. Because there is no open exploration. This is where it's very similar to Hades. You go into a room, at the end of that room, you get a choice between two different places that you want to go. It shows you on the door what reward you're going to get for that room. You go through it, there's no way back. So that element, that very important element that hasn't really been replicated that much from Isaac, except in a couple of games, maybe Voidigo had a little bit of that vibe going to it, where you kind of re-explore the whole room and solve those puzzles of, well, if I got a bomb, I could open the secret room, and if the secret room had a key, I could do this. That's not here. You just progress forward, and you get items, you make decisions, either this room or this room, you get stuff, you program your stuff, you fight the room until you clear all of the bosses. And like I said, the Noita comparison comes from the way that you program your wands in order to work. This game is wacky and fun. It's really fun. It maybe doesn't have the depth. Its story, which is minimal, is very cringe, no doubt. And it's not going to blow your mind. If you're like a person who loves Hades because of the way that it has its characters and its storytelling and a very in-depth progression system and a combat that is really in-depth and requires a lot of attention, that's not here. This is to have a lot of fun. This is not a very challenging roguelike. It can be. Some of the fights can be very tough as you kind of improvise or change some stuff around in order to build something in the moment that's going to better counter your opponent. And there is a lot of dodging involved, but normally you're either broken or you're not broken. And it's about figuring out the way to be broken with what you have. And some of the results just put a huge smile on your face. That is what this game is about. So you always start all of your runs with a basic wand. It shoots 3 little magic balls, but there's a ton of different spells, a ton of different projectiles and modifiers for that. I already talked about some of the options that make your secondary wands autonomous, but here you're gonna have things like lasers and long rays and butterflies that home in and throwing rocks and throwing meteors and all sorts of stuff, and it's supposed to be receiving even more as it leaves early access next year. Variety might be one of the problems. I've had a lot of the same spells available to me on many different runs, although sometimes I do encounter special ones, and I'm not fully sure how many there are. There might be more that I haven't found. But it's a game that's going to live or die by how many different spells you can find and how many ways you can find out how to modify them. But it is really exciting to go through a run, get the random different enchantments that you can put on your wand, have some fun with it, experiment, and suddenly find an effect that you would not expect. In my most recent run, I rejiggered my entire thing to fire 2 simultaneous disruption rays that would freeze and poison enemies. And then I decided, hey, what happens if I put the enchantment that makes it follow my mouse? And as you can imagine, it now follows my mouse and curves into it. And that was fun. It seemed to increase the DPS, so I left it on even though it wasn't that impactful. But then I found an enchantment that made it so that my spell would split into 3 weaker versions of the same spell once it was over, which meant that after I finished casting my double beam of death, from the point where it ended, it would spawn 6 beams of death that, yes, you guessed it, would head it towards my mouse. And that was a light show. That increased my damage so much, just completely changed everything that I was doing just by that coincidence of asking, well, what happens if I put split onto this? I thought maybe it would generate lasers, but I just didn't put 2 and 2 together at the time of, oh yeah, and the lasers that it'll spawn at the end will also follow my mouse, making this a boss killer. And I've had crazier runs as well. I've had, you know, slight spoilers, but I made a run where I just fired moving lightning storms of poison that would divide into 3 lightning storms at the end. And I believe in that run, they would all move towards my mouse as well, although for a time they were moving towards enemies by themselves. Or maybe that was the end, I don't remember. But at a point I got a drop, and instead of lightning storms, I immediately substituted it for black holes, which moved according to my mouse and sucked in all of the enemies, but would also last longer than normal and split into 3 smaller black holes at the end of each of them. And most importantly, something you can't do with the lasers I said before, I can shoot as many black holes out as my mana allowed. So, I mean, I'm showing the footage on screen. Ridiculous and really fun to build something so dumb that feels like I was rewarded for a little bit of my creativity, a little bit of luck, and made it all the way to the final boss. And I died on this run. I died, but it was a fun experience. That's the gist of it. You cross doors. Each of the doors offers you different potential upgrades. You got equipment, you got spells, you got health. You can reforge some of your spells, you can reroll stuff. It's all really designed to keep you moving forward into making spells and fighting enemies. It's got a lot of the highlights that I like in a good roguelite. There are definitely upgrades or spells that will trivialize certain bosses and certain things, which I always think is, like I said, a sign of a good roguelite. I think it's doing something interesting with this formula of just kind of keeping it very railroady. This is what you're meant to do. Just hop in, have some fun. And the whole programming idea of the Noita type wands is really cool, because you really can't compete in this day and age with something like Isaac, for example, as the most direct comparison, since, you know, there's so many items and so many synergies and just there's so much that has been put into a game like that. So you have to find something that's a little bit more of a fresh angle for it. And I think this is a fun time. This is a really good game to spend about, like I said, 10-20 hours on. It's not going to be your 1,000 hour game, probably. It's not going to be that obsession for a lot of people. but we'll see how it does when it's finished and out of early access. I do ultimately recommend Magicraft to fans of the genre, and if you are into those synergistic elements of just making really powerful runs, this is going to help you feel empowered, like it's in your hands more often than not to craft it, and you're gonna just have a good time. As I said before, nothing transcendental, but it doesn't need to be. Some games can just be some fun for a while, and I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy Magicraft. That was my review. If you enjoyed it and you want to hear more about everything from indie games that I think are worth your time to very long critiques of the largest AAA games releasing, subscribe. Leave a like on this video if you think more people should know about Magicraft, because that is exactly what you will achieve by hitting the like button. I've been Mugthief. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.